Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Sankofa Video and Books. We are pleased and happy to have you here with us on this Saturday afternoon. Today, we're having a book talk event with author Akil Parker. I just want to give a special shout out to him. This is his first ever book talk, so if we can, let's just give him some round of applause for encouragement. So we're here today with his book, How to Use All This Math. And math is the language that we use to describe the physical and metaphysical universe. So it is extremely important that we are well versed and we are prepared in knowing how we can use all this math. So, Brother Parker, whenever you're ready, again, welcome. We're happy to have you here and take it away.
I appreciate it. Yeah, like you said, it's my first book talk, so bear with me. And this is Kwame. Kwame, say hi.
Hi.
Hello. So I have three children. I have my bookends here with me today. My oldest son, Nasim, is right there. He's recording. He's 18, a freshman in Brooklyn. And my youngest son, Kwame, right here. Kwame will be 5 in May. So I guess, I'm a college student and a kindergarten. I don't know what I was thinking. But, maybe I wasn't thinking. But I just kind of wanted to talk a little bit about the book and also like the larger mission of my company, All This Math, which is really to improve the relationship between the Black community and mathematics generally. Because oftentimes we always hear conversations about how, we were bad at math and, we didn't like math or math is irrelevant or math isn't helpful or it's a waste of time or why we got to take this class. So what I'm trying to do, the larger mission is to get us to just see math differently, to just see the relevancy of it, to see how it can help us and how it should be something that we should run towards instead of running away from, So this book really is it's a resource for parents, grandparents, uncles, aunts, big cousins, godparents, caregivers, so that we can help the young people to do a few things. Really to help to prevent them from ever experiencing any type of math anxiety. Because what I've realized in my experience, and I've been a high school math teacher for the past 19 years, and I also teach math methods courses at Cheney University. I've been an adjunct professor at Cheney for the past 5 years, is that oftentimes a lot of our children are going into math classes cold because we've been conditioned as a community, as a society, really to just completely outsource mathematics education to the public schools, charter schools, and private schools. And if you notice, a lot of children don't have the same anxiety around ELA or English language arts because, they're learning the English language in their household, they're practicing the English language, they're exposed to different words, different vocabulary. But oftentimes we're not having mathematical conversations in the household. We're not having as many mathematical conversations in the car, running errands, and things of that nature. So I created the book as a resource so that parents would be able to start to do that in an easy way. And I often find that, even in the media, you'll hear a lot of conversations about what Black parents should be doing or Black parents aren't doing enough. And, we're all, there's room for improvement among all of us, myself included. But oftentimes, that critique is not matched up with a viable resource to show people how to actually do the thing that we're claiming that people need to do more of. So this book, and it's only volume 1, because I have a lot of more ideas, in terms of mathematical examples that we find in everyday life, where we can basically say, okay, we can use this activity or this experience to, practice arithmetic, practice algebra 1, practice geometry, right? And that's really what the book is. It's 20 short chapters, and each chapter deals with a different everyday activity, something, calm, something basic, something fundamental that you're doing anyway, but you may not have looked at it as a teachable moment before. You may not have looked at it as an opportunity for your children to practice, algebra, or children to have practice with percentages or proportions or ratios, right? And these are things that they're going to see in class when they get to school. So again, this is where the math, like I mentioned earlier, this is where a lot of the math anxiety comes from, because if they're going into the classroom and they're seeing these terms and these concepts for the first time, they feel like they're getting hit over the head. And they become overwhelmed, and it becomes like too much for them a lot of times. So what I want to do is I want to create a situation where when your children are seeing these concepts in school, in the classroom, when they see it in the classroom, they won't be seeing it for the first time. So it'll be like, oh yeah, we talk about proportions all the time in my house. So, we talk about, percentages, we do unit conversions, we do that in the house, we do it in the car, we go grocery shopping, all those types of things. So this is like the spirit of, why I wrote the book. As a resource, to help the Black community to, as I said, overall, improve this relationship with mathematics. I did want to read some from the introduction. Some of the things I kind of hit on a little bit already, but let me hold it. I got it. So the introduction says the book in and of itself is not the solution to our collective problems in mathematical deficiency and mathematical discomfort. If you purchase this book and do not implement the strategies and tactics within it, you may have wasted your hard-earned money. The book is merely a guide for how to develop the mathematical ability of your children and of yourself in order to protect them from the math phobia and math anxiety that is lurking in the modern society they live in. The strategies and methods within the pages of this book must be implemented on a regular and consistent basis in order to truly learn these fundamental math skills and become comfortable with math in general. Often when Black children are reared in households and around elders that use advanced English vocabulary, ELA coursework is manageable during school experiences because they have already been exposed on a regular basis to the language and are familiar with it due to immersion in the home. However, in many of those same households, Black children do not receive the same type of immersion in mathematics in organic ways as they are exposed to ELA. Consequently, they go to school cold and unprepared for the math content they are given in public or charter or parochial school classrooms. The overall efforts of all this math as a company and this text specifically are to work to change that circumstance whereby the same type of in-home preparation provided for ELA will also be applied to mathematics. This text is meant to be a tool to facilitate that in-home immersion and exposure. As a Black community, we have to eliminate our math phobia. Fear is a liability for some while being an asset for exploiters of those that possess it. If you can be socialized and conditioned to fear mathematics generally, then you are less likely to embrace it as a tool for problem solving. And absent this very beneficial tool for problem solving, problems are unlikely to be solved. Those entities that benefit from the maintenance of problems have a vested interest in us not learning or becoming proficient at math. This book is meant to instill a protection against the development of that fear of math. Why did I decide to write this book? Why did I finally finish writing this book? This book actually took me a few years to write. Had a lot going on basically. But I finally did finish it actually last June 2023. These are both excellent questions. This book is one of my contributions to the Black collective so that we will be able to begin to improve our overall relationship with mathematics as a people. My hope is that math will begin to be viewed by more of us as a supportive friend to embrace as opposed to an oppressive bully worthy of avoidance in order to protect one's personal comfort. We can improve our relationship with math by having tangible experiences where math is useful and doable. The contents of this book provide very hands-on and practical activities that parents, grandparents, uncles, aunts, big cousins, old heads, etc. can partake in along with youth they care about so as to increase their number sense, math fluency, and general comfort with mathematics. People young and old constantly ask the age-old question of, when am I going to use this stuff? In regards to mathematics and all of its rules and formulas. The content of this book is intended to answer this question in more ways than one. It is also meant to condition our thinking so that we can visualize even more and more examples of how math is applicable in our everyday lives in a practical sense that may not even be included in this book. This is the reason behind this book being named How to Use All This Math, because it seeks to begin to expose the utility of math for many. My goal is for these same parents, grandparents, uncles, aunts, big cousins, old heads, etc., to also be able to help their youth with their assigned homework from school. This helps the youth with their understanding of math concepts, strengthens bonds between elders and youth working on these skills together, enables school teachers to be able to teach more advanced material in their classes, and more. Similar to sports or weight training, young people need to get their reps in order to be successful and develop what I describe as mathematical muscle memory. With this muscle memory, they can answer math questions in a rhythmic and consistent manner that may seem effortless at times. Learning and practicing the skills outlined in this book will enable young and old alike to get their reps in on a daily basis in spaces they're familiar with, such as the house, the car, or the store. When this type of mathematical muscle memory is achieved, it is cool to turn on some music and vibe while completing math problems, as you will feel yourself completing math problems to a point. As a youth, I was a strong math student overall and later a proficient high school math teacher. But it wasn't until I started tutoring on a full-time basis around 2018 and teaching elementary math methods courses on the college level at Cheney University that I realized that I had previously lacked conceptual understanding of math fundamentals, even though I had a strong procedural awareness of how to complete math problems. It can be difficult to know what one does not know sometimes. This book is meant to help young people develop a conceptual understanding of mathematics from early on. Memorizing procedures and algorithms is necessary, but this should be balanced with conceptual understanding of these different math topics. Having a strong grasp of math fundamentals is key because this understanding can be leveraged for use in more advanced math courses such as algebra, geometry, trig, calculus, or stats. What many people should realize is that much of the frustration with these subsequent math courses stems from a lack of competence in math fundamentals, as opposed to confusion over the new content. Solving equations in an algebra course is much easier when you have mastered how to add or subtract fractions. Absent of fundamental skills such as adding or subtracting fractions, when you are tasked with solving a particular equation requiring this fundamental skill, this will prohibit you from solving the equation since that is an integral part of the process. Mathematical proficiency also helps to develop critical thinking that our children all need to survive and thrive. Solving problems in math and answering different types of math questions of varying difficulty involves the use of critical thinking and trains us to apply critical thinking on a regular basis in life. Critical thinking can then be applied in daily situations, enabling us to better engage issues involving politics, economics, and social relations. This is a way in which math and its understanding can free us from different types of oppression. This is an often overlooked answer to the question of the relevancy of taking math courses in school. The learning of mathematics early and often is a key to long-term success in today's society. I liken it to the investment time horizon when we consider purchasing stocks, commodities, insurance, cryptocurrency, real estate, etc. for our children in their own portfolios. The earlier that we make these types of investments for our children, the greater of an opportunity for these investments to grow exponentially for the long-term benefit of our children. The same is true for investing in the mathematical competency of our children as early as possible, so that this competency can also grow exponentially over time due to the solid and strong foundation created for them. This is what I was also thinking about while creating this book for our community. Another purpose is that the book serves to motivate us toward reorienting ourselves regarding our relationship with public, charter, and parochial schools from one where they serve as the primary educators of our children to one in which they play a secondary role as we, parents, relatives, community members, assume that primary educational role. The schools can then support the efforts of the household and community by serving as physical spaces where young people can practice skills imparted to them by members of the household and community. This would only be necessary pending the creation of a vast network of independent African-centered schools meant to serve the Black community first and foremost. The Black community and Black parents specifically is not above criticism for not taking more responsibility for the education of its own children. However, members of our community tend to be long on critique and short on solutions. This book is an attempt to create more balance between critique and solutions around this issue. It has been my experience in being the child of Black parents, being a Black parent, and engaging with many other Black parents, that these parents want to take more responsibility and would if they were provided with the proper tools to accomplish this. My observations stand in stark contrast to the popular propaganda that Black parents generally do not care about the education of their children and only prefer to completely outsource this work to school systems. This book is a tool for these motivated Black parents that want to embrace the responsibility but may need some guidance in that area. Enjoy this book. Use it on a regular basis with your children and or young people that you care about. Take notes in the margins. Highlight the parts of the book that resonate with you the most. Talk about it with your friends and family. Make social media posts about it and contribute to shifting the culture in our community from one that is very anti-intellectual regarding math at times to one that is more intellectual and self-sufficient in terms of educating our own children. I'm attempting to give you the tools for this. So that's the introduction, and that's kind of some of like my background, some of my thoughts. Thank you. So some of my thought process of like what went into like creating this and publishing this and whatnot. And a lot of the content from the chapters are actual things that kind of have been battle tested, so to speak. Things that, I've done with, my oldest son when he was younger, to develop his fluency, I started, as a math teacher, you want your own children to always have that head start, So, I had him, solving simple equations when he was 6 years old, right? My daughter, middle child, she's not here right now. She's a dancer. They got a show coming up, so she's back in Philadelphia at dance practice right now. Shout out to Asada. If you go to my YouTube channel, you'll see her in a lot of my videos, where I'm modeling, how to teach different things. I taught her a lot of things earlier than, her school was offering those things. And him the same way. He's learning a lot of things. He's on the farm. How old are you, Bob? How old are you? 4 years old, 100,000. Probably will be 5 in May. So he's learned a lot of things earlier than most schools would provide. But what I'm trying to model for the community is that all of our children can be exposed to the same thing. I want all of our children to have the same head start that my children have, or the children of math teachers typically do have. I want to share it. Kind of love. It's where the level the playing field. And a lot of these examples are, that are in the book, are different things that I've done. Probably my favorite chapter in the book is the chapter on negative ages. And negative ages I like, and this is something that I used to do with Asada when she was younger, when I would tell her stories about things that I experienced when I was a child. Maybe I might be telling her a story about something I did when I was 10 years old or something like that. And then one day it just, dawned on them. I said, well, ask her how old she was when that story took place, right? So of course, when I'm 10 years old, she wasn't even born yet, right? So the first time I said this to her, I posed this question, she looked at me like I was crazy. But what I was trying to do was introduce the concept of negative numbers and introduce the number lines to her. Because oftentimes when children learn how to count, in school we start at 0, and we get introduced to the natural numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But I advocate that when children learn how to count, we may as well just introduce the negative side of the number line as well, since it's just a mirror image anyway, right? So what I had Asada do, so it's a story, Asada knows that I was born in 1980. So then for her number line, her personal number line, her 0 would be 2012. That's the year she was born. So then it gives her an opportunity, an organic opportunity for her to do the calculation to figure out, okay, well, my dad was born in 1980. So therefore, the story involves him doing something when he was 10 years old. So I do 1980 plus 10, that takes it to 1990. That's when the story took place. So now, if I was born in 2012, what's the difference between 2012 and 1990? And she's doing that mental math calculation. And then every time I tell her a story, maybe not every time, but a lot of times when I tell her stories, I want her to think about that. I might ask her the question, how old were you when that happened? So then she figures it out. She's like, oh, okay, well, 2012 minus 1990, that's 22 years. It's a 22-year difference. So Dad, I was negative 22 years old when that took place. And then it gets a little even deeper, for the mothers, because your mother talking to your daughter about this since, and I didn't learn this in biology when I was young. I learned this later on in life. Women being born, girls being born with all their ovaries, when that experience actually happened, she physically was with you, when that was happening, which was wild to me, But these are the things that we can, these are just the ways, the just organic and just general ways that we can have these conversations with our children, because we're always telling stories about stuff from the past anyway, right? We always talk about things that happen to us, things that happen to other people, we tell stories about our grandparents and our parents, and then it's if we can get the children to start thinking, okay, well, when was this? Or in relation to my age, how old would I have been? And it gives us those organic opportunities to just practice addition, practice subtraction, practice dealing with negative numbers. So again, when you go into the classroom and the teacher introduces negative numbers, it's not no big thing, because they've already been doing it in the household anyway, already been doing it in the car anyway, right? And also with history, there's a teacher framework that I've been developing since 2019, formally since 2019, but it's kind of something that I've been implementing throughout my entire teaching career since 2005, where I always try to, implement Black history, in my math classes, whether I was teaching geometry, statistics, pre-cal, calculus, algebra 1, algebra 2, because it's just an interest of mine anyway. And And then when I realized that, a lot of my students, I always taught schools in Philly, in the hood. And, in addition to a mathematics deficiency, there also was a deficiency in terms of historical awareness. So I said, okay, well, it's not their fault they have a deficiency in historical awareness, nobody taught them. So I said, okay, well, how can I figure out ways to combine these types of things? How can I teach them the geometry, teach them the algebra, and also teach them about, people like Mumia Abu-Jamal in Philadelphia, people like Cecil B. Moore, people like Richard Allen, all these local people, but also people like, throughout, Roberson's, Malcolm X, the King, and not Martin Luther King that we hear about, just with the I Have a Dream speech, but, some of his other speeches, some of the books he wrote, some of his other ideas about capitalism and colonialism and war and things like that. So how can I figure out ways to do that? And my students would often respond and say, oh, Mr. Parker, you should have been an African-American history teacher. And I said, okay, cool, well, we can do both, So in terms of the negative age situation, or the negative age chapter, I have some examples in the back of that chapter where, I talk about different, events in our history. Go to the chapter. Page 43. Yeah, so I might be like, one of these days I'm gonna have this conversation with Kwame right here. You see, Kwame's got a lot of energy. Right, exactly, yeah, there's nothing wrong with it, But, ask your child what their negative age was in 1791. And, why was 1791 significant? Because that's when the Haitian Revolution kicked off. So as a way to do some math, do some calculations, and also at the same time, introduce them to the Haitian Revolution and have them have a connection to it. They say, oh, okay, this is this many years. And I think also, too, it helps you to conceptualize history very differently. Like, I was born in 1980, but when I was in school, and I learned about, the assassination of Dr. King in 68, or the assassination of Malcolm X in 65, that always seemed so far and so distant, from me. But then I think about it, when you do the math on it, it's like, wow, King was assassinated just 12 years before I was born. And then as you grow older, you're like, 12 years is really not a long time at all, right? But until you do the math on it, the feeling, you might feel like, oh, that was such a long time ago. They didn't even have, flat TVs back then, right? But it's really not that far ago, But the math helps you to become more precise and gain a different understanding of what is actually happening. And see some of the other examples, like 1955, and then why is 1955 significant? Because that's when the Montgomery bus boycott started. Or 1925, birth year of Omawale Malcolm X. 1941, birth year of Kwame Ture. And these are just some examples that I provided, but there's it's not an exhaustive list. So as parents, grandparents, elders, using this with your children, you can create your own examples. Do your own research, just to, connect, have your children practice mathematics and also get a history lesson built in as well, And that's one of my favorite chapters. Another chapter is tell them the temperature in your car, right? Now this is something that I did years ago. A car I had, I purposely changed the setting from Fahrenheit to Celsius, and part of the reason I did that is because I wanted to stay sharp. I wanted to give myself an opportunity to practice, doing some math, right? So every day, because I didn't grow up in a society that uses Celsius, right? I knew what Celsius was, but if you ask me what does 20 degrees Celsius feel like, I really can't tell you. I know what 20 degrees Fahrenheit feel like. It's cold outside, right? But 20 degrees Celsius, I don't know. So what I would do is I purposely set my car, the dashboard, to Celsius, so that I would be forced to do the calculation, right? So now I do this with my children. When they get in the car and they see that it's 8 degrees Celsius, I say, it's solid. Or I might ask my son, when he gets a little older, when I teach him, I ask him too. I say, what's the temperature in Fahrenheit? If it's 8 degrees Celsius, right? And basically what you do is you just, this is kind of the approximate formula. And this is something that, students might see in a chemistry class, when they get to high school, but we don't have to wait that long, right? So 8 degrees, times 2, basically. You really should multiply by 1.8, but we can round up from 1.8 to 2, right? So 8 times 2 is 16, and then you do 16 plus the 32. And 16 plus 32 is going to be 48. So that's 48 degrees Fahrenheit, right? So it's a quick little calculation and just something, but think about how many car rides you take, how many times you get in the car, how many times you get out the car, get back in the car, And, you know, just, again, it's like I said in the introduction, it's about getting your reps in, you know, just like the sports. You know, so think about this just the hundreds of times in all those car rides, man, as you're doing like some basic math, some fundamental math every time you get in the car, you know. And then, you know, there's a way to convert from Fahrenheit back to Celsius as well. So that's, you know, another chapter, you know, on that. But just all these like teachable moments that, you know, once upon a time I hadn't even thought about. I wasn't even thinking about it. It's kind of like, I guess like a gambler would say, you know, don't leave money on the table. And I reflect on like my own teaching experience, and there were so many opportunities for more learning and, you know, more teaching, you know, that I didn't take advantage of. So now that I've identified these, I'm trying to share with the community. Also in the car, a lot of our children, while we're in the car, we can look at license plates. Have our children look at license plates and take the numbers from the license plates and just do basic addition, basic subtraction, basic multiplication, basic division. You work with least common multiples, greatest common factors. All these things that they grow and inevitably see in school, but oftentimes if they're seeing them in school for the first time, or maybe you have a teacher that doesn't really know how to explain it the best way or in a way that matches with your child's learning style, right? They might be a good teacher, but they might not know how to teach your child in the best way for them, that's most suitable for them. So, but if your child already knows how to do this thing, then that probably becomes less relevant. You know what I mean? So yeah, and also I definitely want to recommend, and this is something I say all the time, is that make sure your children that you care about, make sure they have their multiplication facts memorized. When I say multiplication facts, at least up to 12 times 12. Because quiet as it's kept, that is a fundamental reason for a lot of weaknesses and deficiencies and frustration with higher level math. You know, that's so foundational. Once you know your multiplication facts, then you should automatically know your division facts, because division is just the converse of the multiplication. It's like if you know that 8 times 2 is 16 off the top of your head. You also know that 16 divided by 2 equals 8, right? They're just frontwards and backwards, right? And also with that multiplication, then that helps you when it's time to add fractions and subtract fractions. You got different denominators. You got to find common denominators. All these skills, and you know, you're dealing with percentages. You know, we're dealing with reducing fractions or finding equivalent fractions. All these things that you need to do. You might get to trigonometry and have to convert from radians to degrees. Again, you need to know your multiplication facts. It's all about the multiplication facts. I can't ever stress that enough. So again, with these license plate games, the chapter on license plate games, I call it, it gives you a chance to, you know, just looking out the window, you know, have them put their devices down, take the phone away, they can play Roblox later, right? You know, put the device down and just look at the license plate in front and just have them say, you know, multiply those 2 numbers, multiply those 3 numbers, you know, divide those 2 numbers, divide those 3 numbers, you know, add them, subtract them. Sometimes we take for granted some of the deficiencies that our children may have, right? Because we think they're a certain age, or, you know, they should know this, but they may not really know it. Like, you know, I had an opportunity in North Philly. I was doing some tutoring at a local school in my neighborhood a couple of years ago, working with 3rd graders. Some of the 3rd graders didn't have their addition facts memorized. You know, this is something I would have took for granted, but we gotta be real honest about the deficiencies in order to address the deficiencies once and for all. I think a lot of times there's a lot of embarrassment that we got to get past too, and I think there are a lot of I think especially on the high school level you see that a lot, because I think it's also due to how we label different levels of mathematics. Like we label mathematics like, well, this is 4th grade math, or this is 3rd grade math, right? So we buy into those labels, and then you have a young person that's like in 10th grade, and they're like, oh, I don't know, I lack this skill, or I have this learning gap. And then somebody tells them, oh, well, that's 3rd grade math. So then that person's in 10th grade, and then, you know, the ego kicks in. It's like, whoa, nah, I'm so embarrassed. I don't want people to know that I don't know 3rd grade math. And we never think to question the labeling. You know, like, well, why is it 3rd grade math? Who decided that? Who says it's 3rd grade math? Especially when you consider that math is so cumulative, and the skills are constantly repeated, right? Like, you're still doing the basic arithmetic that you might learn in kindergarten or 1st grade. You're still doing that in a calculus class, but you wouldn't call calculus kindergarten level math or 1st grade level math, right? So I think that for a lot of us, though, we have to, like, you know, explicitly think about that, like that idea that, you know, like to push back on this notion that, oh, this is like 3rd grade level math or 2nd grade level math, because that hinders a lot of us from trying to go back and deal with those deficiencies once and for all. And we instead just say, nah, I'm cool. I don't want nobody to know that I don't know something that is supposed to be, so simple, But it's like, if you never taught it, you will never taught it. If you don't know it, you don't know it, So yeah, those are a couple of the chapters that I'm really proud of. I mean, I'm proud of every chapter in the book actually, but those are just a couple that come to mind. Pizza fractions. Yeah, now see, remember this is how I introduced fractions to you, right? So on Sundays we used to, watch football and order junk food, order a bunch of like unhealthy food on Sundays, and wings and cheesesteaks and pizza and stuff like that. But I've come across so many students and young people that just hate fractions. They despise fractions, right? But I think it's because they don't understand them conceptually, right? And so what I did with Nassim is, it's really an issue of language. Now that there's something else that I want to say too, like math is a language. Math should be treated just like, Arabic, Kiswahili, Amharic, French, it's a language. Math is a language. And a lot of the deficiencies that people have is because of lack of understanding the vocabulary. So we definitely have to address that. And fractions is a way to express numerical value and quantity, right? So, like for example, if Kwame likes pretzels, right? Okay, Kwame likes pizza, but okay, yeah, back to pizza. You just reminded me. We were talking about Nassim actually. So instead of you get a large pizza has 8 slices typically, right? So you can say, yeah, have 1 slice, or you can say have 1/8 of the pizza, right? You're communicating the same thing, but just in a different way, the same amount, but in a different way, right? Or if you have 2 slices, that's 2/8 of the pizza. And then we can have a conversation about reducing fractions, simplifying fractions, and also equivalent fractions. Because 2/8 is the same as a quarter, or 1/4. And when you look at it visually, you can see that, this amount, these 2 slices is 1/4 of the pizza, right? If you were to divide this pizza up into 4 equal parts, this would be equal to one of those parts, right? So it's really a matter of just introducing that language into their lives, right? So instead of just saying, here's 1 slice of pizza, it's also 1/8 of the pizza. And I think what this does as well is it speaks to, the Kwanzaa principle. The Kwanzaa principle from the Nguzo Saba, collective worker responsibility, regime, being part of a collective. Because everybody that's in this bookstore right now, we're all one whole individual. But at the same time, we can also be classified as a fraction of the total part, of the total group. So I actually think that if we do a good job with explaining fractions in a certain way, conceptually, it can lead to a certain type of character development in our young people, because then they begin to see themselves as part of a larger community and a larger collective, as opposed to, this type of, as opposed to just being these rugged individuals that, capitalist society would want them to think of themselves as, so that they don't really have any type of buy-in to, being a part of a larger collective. So this is a way that we can use mathematics for character building at the same time. And I actually don't think it's anything accidental about the fact that so many students I've encountered hate fractions and don't understand fractions. Because I think that being less communal in terms of orientation actually serves to help to maintain the Western status quo. So this is just one of my theories. So that's something else I mentioned in the book explicitly about how fractions can be used to help us to see ourselves as part of a larger collective, and also understanding the numbers and understanding how the numbers break down. And also, like when we think about equivalent fractions, it's a defense mechanism, because it's a way to ensure that we're not taking advantage of in certain situations. Because if we don't understand equivalent fractions, people can play games with us. People can play in our faces. Because if you don't know that 3/4 is equivalent to 9/12, somebody can tell you that, if you buy 3/4 or 3/4, it costs this much. But if you do 9/12, it's going to cost more. It's like, wait, why should it cost more? It's the same amount. But if you don't notice the same amount, and they have you thinking, 9 is more than 3, 12 is more than 4, and you don't understand the concept of a fraction, and the fact that it's about the relation, not the quantity of the numbers, but the relationship between the numerator and the denominator. If you don't understand that, then you can be very easily taken advantage of. And that's something that I definitely want to prevent, for our children. And also for our parents, for our adults. You know, I don't want any of our people to be taken advantage. We've been taken advantage of enough in the society. So, and I think one of the main reasons is due to our, mathematical deficiencies. So, yeah, so that's why, I mean, that's generally why we do the work we do with all this math. And, and also why I published the book, this first book. I do want to give a shout out to Sister Monica from the Sankofa Homeschool Collective, who's given me the opportunity to work with some families in our homeschool collective, where I've been able to actually practice some of these things. Some of these things I'm talking about are things that have been actually workshopped. I've been teaching a class on math word problems for the past 3 semesters, and they're the Sankofa Homeschool Collective group. So I want to thank her for that. Thanks for coming up. Yeah. Are there any questions? Anybody have any questions? So many questions? I like to hear that.
I guess, how early do you suggest, using your own life example, how early do you suggest incorporating these concepts? Because I like what you're saying, and I do think it's applicable. It is a language, and if you're speaking in the household, I love the pizza example, I eat pizza all the time. For a young, a family who's young, they got a child, how old do you start suggesting incorporating this language of math skills?
So, I mean, I think it varies by the skill, but I would say as soon as they learn, they're going to understand how to count and understand quantity. Yeah. I do want to say that I think a lot of times, like the way where all of us are conditioned, even myself, we're kind of conditioned to think that, that something will be, like, the child won't be ready for something as opposed to being ready for it, So I think we should just try certain stuff. And also don't be fearful of, getting it wrong. Because, that may happen. You may try one method of teaching or explanation, and it might not work. You might not get it. But because you're in a household and it's a safe space, it's a loving environment, there's no test, there's no standardized test, there's no grade.
No beating.
It's none of that. It's like, it's okay, because it's really a learning process on both sides, for the parent and for the child. The child is learning, the parent is learning how to best teach them. So y'all are really learning together. And, I think, we should just embrace it, because it's not like a formal school, like a compulsory school. That's fragile. So, okay.
That leads me to my question about, as a teacher, parents often want worksheets, but I love the work that you have in here. But parents tend to want like right or wrong answers. They don't want the exercises. They don't want the process. They want to see if their kid got 100% or 80% or whatever percent. So what do you suggest for a teacher who is teaching kids whose parents want these high scores?
I mean, they can still get that. You can still give them the opportunity to get the 100% and the explicit, specific answers, right answer, wrong answer. But I think when they get the wrong answer, I think that creates an opportunity to have the conversation about, the concept more so, because it's like, well, why was it wrong? And then you start to explain, because you may need to reteach or like re-explain, something in a different way. So then they might be more open to that, because, they want to prevent the child from getting it wrong again, right? But also it creates an opportunity to kind of shift the paradigm or the outlook on how we view mistakes. Because that's something I still work on. Like, growing up, like, mistakes weren't good. Mistakes were meant to be avoided at all costs. And even early in my teaching career, I didn't embrace mistakes, so I put into that typical culture of, making students feel bad for making mistakes, right? As opposed to leveraging the mistakes and using them as teachable moments, because that's when we really learn the most. It's like, the mistakes are more helpful, because I can't really do nothing with the right answer. You give me the right answer, that's cool, but I like the mistakes, because the mistakes is like, because I want to know how you got there. Because you might have actually been on the right track, and you might have been thinking about it in a way that I never even considered. You got it wrong, but your thought process, your approach might have been something innovative. So you might end up putting me onto something. So a mistake can actually be helpful, but I think that's a mindset. But in a high stakes testing environment and in an environment where there's not a lot of time for actual learning, for like slow learning, and now with the technology that's available in the society we have now, it's even worse. It's even less time. It seems like it's even more of a challenge. But yeah, we got to be able to like embrace the mistakes and have some some slow learning. Brother in the back.
I think we should change the terminology also, because mistakes has been defined. And because it's been defined, using that terminology discourages people from moving forward in a more adventurous manner.
Right.
Because they don't want to be seen as somebody who makes mistakes.
Right. Because if you embrace it like science, like the scientists that makes the discovery they become famous for, they messed up. They got the experiment, the variables and the conditions were wrong a lot of time, but they had to get it wrong to know what not to do. Yeah.
We don't ever hear about the number of
How many times
times he did what he did before he was actually successful. But we understand that he was successful. So we automatically assume that he was successful the first time.
Right. Yeah, which is ludicrous. The other brother, get your hand up.
I think that, we say, I read a lot. So when we speak, we say, well, and I start thinking about it, right? And I try not to use that as an example. But we say, like, the relevance of our race, right? And some people do look at, like the relevance of our race, when we walk in certain areas, when we go certain places, but I think that, in this world, I like some things, I listen, we all familiar with the term, this is this type of world, but if we take in that type of thinking and let them keep us from, growing, we won't never, go to them. We came a long way. Black doing a whole lot of things. So it's a God thing. God will elevate. If you put, whatever you got that God has given you to, where you can elevate yourself. Like that. So that's how I look at it. But of course, we live in a world of criticism. You know what I'm saying? So you always have different people that's gonna have something to say. But you can't let that stop you from trying to do it.
I appreciate that, brother. I appreciate that. Let me get the young brother in the back.
Okay, so I just want to know, that some kids don't like multiplication or fraction.
Well, that's an excellent question. I think that a lot of it has to do with them not understanding how to get the right answers. It can be frustrating, like if you get answers wrong, and sometimes it seems like there's just a lot of multiplication facts to memorize. So it can become overwhelming at first, and you can feel like you're never gonna get it, right? That's one thing. But then at the same time, I believe that there's a lot of programming in our society that we see on television shows, we see in movies, we hear in the songs, we see it around us, that math is just hard. And also that math is irrelevant. So then we're dealing with that programming. So when we're in class and we're studying math and we don't get it right away, it doesn't come easy to us, then we have this idea that, this is like a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's like, see, I told you, I'm not supposed to. But think about, but we have to pause for a moment and think of like other areas of our life where we don't do that. Like we get a new video game, and it's hard. You keep dying, you keep losing, but you keep playing the game because you expect for it to be difficult, right? But math, there's a type of programming that we're subjected to, where we're meant to just tap out, with math. And So I have a theory, a larger theory about that, because it's about problem solving. And if we think about the Latin phrase cui bono, which means who benefits, or for the good of whom, this is a zero-sum game in the society that we live in. So for every problem that I have, there's some person benefiting from my problem, right? And I think we can all say that. Any problem that you have, somebody is benefiting from your problem, even though it's often promoted and advertised as just the problem aspect, and it makes it seem as though it's a problem for everybody. But nothing is a problem for everybody, even the worst scenario, worst situation. So math is, in my opinion, the subject and the discipline that best equips our children and our people to develop strong problem-solving skills. So if I was a person that was heavily invested into people possessing problems, I would, at all costs, I would not want them to develop math skills. Because when they develop math skills, now they develop problem-solving skills. And if they develop problem-solving skills, now they're going to create a problem for me. Because once they solve their problem, now they have created a problem for me. Because I've lost my benefit. Because I used to be able to exploit the fact that they had problems. So I have to try to do everything in my power to subtly make people believe that this subject math, they should stay as far away from it as possible, right? It's kind of like I used the analogy the other day. Like it's like fixing a game. The game is rigged, right? It's like if I got a basketball team, I'm playing against this other basketball team, but then I know what this team practices, and I also know the guy that has the key to the gym. So I tell the guy, listen, lock the gym up. Don't let them go practice, right? So my team is practicing. Their team's not practicing. Because I rigged the game. I got an inside man, inside connect. You lock the gym, they can't practice. So now when it's time for us to play, we cook them. Beat them by 50. They couldn't even practice. They weren't prepared, right? So I think that there's like that's like a more subtle aspect that often is not discussed. And there's like, a lot of conversation around like, I think there's a larger societal, a macro or larger societal influence that is not discussed and not spoken about enough, right? Now, maybe individuals can do more, parents can do more, of course, children can do more sometimes, of course, but it's that larger piece, that like unseen hand that often gets off that we never consider, right? So it's not just as if the kids would study more, put the phones down, like that's part of it, but that's really a small part of it because they're up against something. There are forces in place that strongly and definitely benefit from that math deficiency. It's not a problem for everybody, as a school teacher, we get paid to teach summer school, so that's an income source. That's an income generator. So if students don't fail, then what? It's less money. Think about crime. And again, what I'm saying right now, this is why I think math is important, because the earlier we get our children acclimated to mathematics, they develop that type of mathematical thinking. And mathematical thinking and critical thinking are really synonymous to me, right? So you start thinking about things like, well, wait, if they really, let's talk about crime. If they really end crime, lower crime significantly, what about all the police officers that get overtime pay? How they justify the overtime pay? Exactly. So what mathematics does and what mathematical thinking does is it creates a different worldview, right? Where it's more balanced, where you're not just solely focused on the problem, but you're looking at the benefactor or who benefits from the problem. Because oftentimes we don't look at who benefits from the problem. We only look at the problem and we make this assumption. And the media will advertise it like that. Like, oh, this is a problem. And it's a problem for everybody. And sometimes those that benefit from the problem, they will also play the role of the victim. And they'll say, oh, well, like this multi-billion-dollar, Fortune 500 company is like benefiting from this problem. But then you'll see them on the news, like, oh, we're going to give you a check to your nonprofit or whatever, so you can help with this problem. That's a drop in the bucket, because I might make $100 million off of the problem. I'll give you a check for $100,000. That's nothing. But I give the appearance. It's all about optics. I give the appearance that we're all on the same side, but we're definitely not on the same side. But with mathematical reasoning and mathematical understanding, we start to question these things. A lot of times we don't even question these things because, from an early age, we were conditioned to run away from the math and stay as far away from it as possible. So I just really want us to just run towards the math. Don't fear it. Don't be scared of it. You know, even as adults, you know, it's never too late. Just like we talk about, you know, a lot of us as adults, we learn about financial literacy. And we say, well, you know, I never learned about this when I was young and whatnot. We learn it now, and it's comfortable, right? I actually would argue that a lot of the issues with financial literacy are really due to a lack of foundational math skills. Because, like, and I have a finance degree. I never wanted to be a teacher at first. It was the best thing that ever happened to me. The fact that, you know, I was a bank examiner for the FDIC. That wasn't working out very good. They were about to fire me, so I resigned, so they wouldn't be able to fire me. And then I had a baby on the way, so I had to get another job. This guy right here, I needed to be able to support him. Look how tall, look how big he is. He always ate a lot, right? So then I ended up becoming a teacher, right? Yeah, the pizza, yeah. So I ended up becoming a teacher. And it was one, like I said, it was one of the best things that I ever did. And you know, just thinking about it in terms of, you know, finance, but all the math, like all the math that you have to study in finance to get a finance degree, right? A lot of it is, a lot of the financial literacy is like, it sounds good and it sounds nice to follow the accounts on social media to talk about, you know, you can do this and you can do that. But at some point, you're gonna have to roll your sleeves up and do some calculations of your own, or else you're just gonna be watching videos and stories about other people and how much money they make. You wanna be able to apply that to your own life and your own situation, but you gotta understand percentages. You gotta understand fractions, ratios, proportions. You gotta know how to do some algebra. You got to. And also, while I'm on the topic, this is not a rant, even though it might sound like a rant, but we have to push back on people saying that even in the schools, we should replace Algebra 2 with personal finance or Algebra 1 with personal finance, because they're not mutually exclusive. Like if you go in any math textbook, you know, or any finance textbook, or any math textbook, right, Algebra 2, you're gonna see personal finance word problems in those sections. So you need the algebra to, you know, do personal finance. You need it, you're using it. But I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that a lot of people don't know the like you talk about definitions, right? A lot of people don't know the definition of math. We just don't know the definition of math. We have an idea of what we think it is, but we don't really know what it is. So that's what leads to people saying things like that. That we can replace this with that. You know, where really they're one and the same. You know, because you need to be able to do the calculations. And you need to be able to understand the calculator. Even if the calculator does it for you, or you got the Microsoft Excel spreadsheet that runs the formula for you, you still need to understand the formula on a fundamental and foundational level. You still need to be able to understand it, you know, so that you can plan better. Any other questions? Yes.
So like when it comes to fundamental math, do you think it could also kind of play into like that insecurity? Because like you brought up the example of you can have a 10th grader, but because of terminology, they're on like a 3rd grade level. So in their mind, like if they did the math, they 7 grades behind. I don't know if you like mentioned it earlier or if like you mentioned it in your book, but like how do you think we should shift like the terminology? Because really they not 7 grades behind. Like really they could probably catch up in about 2 to 3 months. But in their mind they thinking like, damn, I'm like 7 years behind.
So that's a good question. I would say just don't even use that terminology. Like so instead of saying 3rd grade math, there's going to be a specific skill set that you need help with. I would just focus on that specific skill set. And then, you know, if somebody wants to say, oh, well, you should have learned that then we got to be bold enough to just say, well, I didn't. You know, and it's almost like, is it really your fault if you didn't learn it back then?
Right.
You know, it's like young people that don't have historical awareness. Is it really their fault that they don't have historical awareness? They probably don't have historical awareness because there weren't elders around them that had historical awareness and then also transmitted it to them. You know, so I think we can just identify the name of the specific topic, whether it's you know, arithmetic with decimals or you know, arithmetic with fractions. We can just be more precise in what we're actually talking about. Because I think like the grade description with grade levels it can be problematic for a lot of reasons. Because then I mean we talking about, you know, maybe, and like I live in Philadelphia, maybe 3rd grade math in Philadelphia might not be the same as 3rd grade math in Washington, D.C. Right. So then it's now things are more complicated. But those specific concepts, like how to multiply decimals, right? How to multiply decimals in Philly is the same as how to multiply decimals, or I shouldn't say how, multiplying decimals in Philly is the same as multiplying decimals in DC. There might be different methods that we can use. You know, there are a lot of different methods. You know, but and that's another thing too. I think we should embrace different methods for doing things. You know, oftentimes when we learn math, we learn one way to do a problem, and we become comfortable with that one way. And when someone offers a different way, we're ready to fight. Because we're not used to that.
In educational circles now, they only accept one way. When I was in school, math teacher would bring several people up, and you do an equation, and you might get 4 different methods. You all get the same answer. And what the teacher would do is say, everybody else, you pick which method works best for you, and you use that method. As long as you get the right answer, that's basically what we're looking for. But now, they literally minimized it to one singular method of getting the equation. And if you don't use that full method, you don't get credit, or you get partial credit for your answer.
Yeah, I think yeah, we gotta know as many ways as possible because it deepens our understanding, you know, of the larger concept. You know, being able to see things, you know, different ways, and you know, we end up making connections to other types of math also at the same time by using different methods. So I think it's very important just to know as many methods as possible, because you want to have options, and I think that can lead to, you know, developing a love for mathematics by having options, you know. And also, it's like, you know, in terms of just, what's the word I'm trying to look for? It escapes me right now. But just in terms of, like, I guess, versatility, like, you want to have different options because, you know, you may, like, one may not be available. You know, you want to know how to pick and choose and say, okay, well, based upon this problem where it's set up, this method right here would be more viable, or would actually make more sense to use this method. And that also shows like a high level of higher order thinking, knowing how to identify like which method I should use. Kind of like when, you know, when you're traveling and you're trying to get home, and you're trying to think, okay, well, which way should I go? Like, should I take the local route? Should I take the highway? And then you're thinking of, you know, these different factors. Okay, well, what time is it? Is it rush hour? Is it are they doing construction over there? You know, what's the weather like? You know, is this blocked off? Or is it, you know, some type of street festival going on, or this street's blocked off? And then what's going to be I guess the effect, the domino effect of that as a result? So, you know, all those types of things. But yeah, I'm a heavy advocate for, like, you know, learning as many methods as possible, and, you know, I'll let you fall. But a lot of that work is going to have to be done at home, and like when you're in our own time, you know, because in the school, the way school is set up, and this is kind of like the aspect that is probably one of the most problematic aspects, is that you got a limited time, right, in school. So the teacher, you know, has a school sequence, we're covering this topic this week, Monday through Friday, that's it. Well, Monday through Thursday, Friday we're taking the test, right? That's it. So you get it, you got that limited time to get it. If you don't get it, we're moving on to the next thing. Problem is, it's cumulative. So we go to the next thing, you still need to know the previous thing, but if you didn't get it, then now you're not going to know the next thing either.
You got multiple learning styles, and multiple learning paces, all in the same room at the same time.
Yeah.
And
I don't see that. I don't see that ever changing. So I think the best remedy for that is just for us to try to just be more self-reliant and just empower ourselves to just make sure, because it's different if teacher says, okay, we're covering this from Monday through Thursday, tests on Friday. On Monday, when you walk into class, this is something you've never seen before in your life, right? And like you mentioned, learning styles, that teacher's teaching style might not correspond to that child's learning style. But it's different if the child was already exposed to it, right? Because you already do unit conversions, right? Every time they come into the kitchen, they get a snack, like a bag of chips or something. And, you know, you look on the bag of chips and it says, you know, 1 ounce and also 28 grams. So then you're asking them questions from a young age. Well, if 1 ounce is 28 grams, tell me how many grams 3 ounces would be. they're doing unit conversions, like organic, right? And they're just, in the habit of doing that. So then when they go to school and the teacher's introducing that unit, that idea, that concept, and then it's like, okay, I'm familiar with this. So my 4 days, my Monday through Thursday, if I'm that student that was doing it at home already, it looks very different than from the 4 days experience that the student has that has never seen that before in life. And I think that's just, I don't have a lot of faith in schools changing. So I just think we gotta just take it into our own hands and do the best we can. And now if we have schools that we control, independent schools that we control, then we having a different conversation. But most of our children are not in independent spaces like that. So even if they were, I think if we had the independent schools, I think there'd be a much more cooperative environment between the home and the school anyway. Because I think that just makes more sense anyway. Any other questions? Comments? Concerns?
Lots of ideas for some homework.
Okay. Yes.
Hi, I was going to comment, thank you for the session. I'm a homeschooler 3 children. I'm part of St. But this is great for me because I love math, but teaching my children can be difficult sometimes. And so the language that you spoke that is helping me. I'm processing while you're speaking how I can move differently, so I'm grateful.
Oh yeah. I'm glad I can help. But with language, what I had to learn as a teacher is that a lot of times there are terms that we take for granted as teachers if we know the terms really well, right? And sometimes we have to slow down and make sure students explicitly know what does that mean. Or we'll just assume that they should know what it means, and in a mathematical context, words like factor or graph or or whatever. And I think what I tend to do is have students explain to me tell me what that means, in your own words, because I think they should be able to do that because sometimes you have a feeling what a word means, but you can't really speak intelligently about it. Sometimes I think we should make sure that the students are able to always speak intelligently about what different terminology is and what different vocabulary is. That holds students back a lot. It's that vocabulary piece. It's so key. And then because then we can't even really get to the math until we understand what we're being asked to do, and we don't know what we're being asked to do until we know the vocabulary, and we're able to fully embrace and understand. And also, I want to also advocate for word problems. Because word problems are when students ask, "When am I going to use this stuff?" Well, the word problems tell you. And also, so even if your children are going to a school where they're not being taught, word problems that maybe have a direct connection to their lives or their interests or whatnot, the math is a framework. Kind of like when you go to the store, you buy a picture frame and it's got the stock photo in it. When you get home, you take the stock photo out, put it in the recycling or whatever, and then you put your picture in there. It's the same frame, but it's different content. So once you learn how to solve a certain type of word problem, you can then apply that to anything that's relevant to that. So something that you do care about, something that is relevant to your life, that's what you can do. So word problems are just of the utmost importance. And I'm also a heavy advocate for word problems because when I was young, I was a student that didn't like word problems. I was fearful of them. I was scared of them. And then when I became a teacher early in my career, I was still fearful of them. So I would shy away. And again, because of the time constraints in public schools, I was able to shy away because the word problems are typically after the technical. It's the technical examples, okay, solve the equation. We would spend so much time on just solving the equation, we would never get to the word problems. And I had an excuse because it's we got to move on anyway. But then once I got over that, and I said, we got to. I love word problems now because they're so relevant. It's really, and it also helps to push back on that false dichotomy between being a reading person and being a math person. Because you can't be a math person if you can't read and really understand what you're being asked to do. So there's that part also. And a lot of times sometimes you have reading issues and that are masquerading as math issues. And math sometimes gets scapegoated. Because I've had plenty of students that might be able to say, if I give you the equation, you can solve the equation on paper easily. But if I give you a word problem that needs to be decoded and translated into the equation, it's that part you can't do. So that's a skill in itself. Like knowing how to, but a lot of that, sometimes people think, well, it's just raw intelligence that's required to do it. A lot of times it's exposure. If you've done enough word problems, like I remember, I'll never forget a guy, he was selling some SAT prep books at a school I was teaching at like 15 years ago. And he said something to me that made a lot of sense. He said, there are basically 100 different types of math word problems, right? So if you can learn those 100 types and then recognize them when you see them, you'll be fine. That's just the key. You just gotta know them. So it's kind of like with video games. Like you know how to play certain video games. Like you learn what to do, certain levels, certain enemies, whether it's sports or whatever, sports games, the same thing. You just have to learn patterns. And with the word problems, it's the same way. So when you look at them, like, okay, I see this. This is a combined word problem. Okay, this is free time problem. This is the system of equations problem. So once you learn that, then you're good because it's really more of an issue of recognition, and familiarity. So you definitely go lean into the word problems, like whenever possible. Somebody else, you got a question, right?
No, I would say that word problem, math word problem cover two of them.
Thank you for coming up.
Thank you.
Yes, there should be. Are there copies left?
Yeah, these are the last few copies left.
Yes, we got 3 copies left.
All right, let's get one more round of applause for the co-person. Again, that was his first ever book talk, so we blew it out of the water. We're very grateful for the knowledge that you shared. We can tell that you have experience as a teacher. And I can speak for, I assume all of us, when I say that I learned something today, I learned multiple things today. And, multiples are important, so, let's keep that in mind. So we have the book here for sale, $30. We had a question online, how much is the book, so how can we stay in touch with you and, be able to support you on your journey?
So you can follow me on all the social media at All This Math on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. Also the company website is allthismath.com. And also definitely subscribe to our YouTube channel where we have almost 700 videos ranging from elementary arithmetic all the way up to calculus 1. So we offer virtual tutoring, but we're kind of running low on the slots and availability right now, which is kind of a good and a bad thing. But the YouTube channel is basically free tutoring. So, we have about, like I said, 700 videos pre-recorded that you can tap into as well. Yeah.
Cut you off.
That you can tap into on the YouTube channel.
See, you gotta stay down.
Okay. Yeah. So almost 700 videos on the YouTube channel. So go to YouTube and subscribe to All This Math and tell everybody about it. Everything is organized into different playlists on the YouTube channel. So you can also stay in touch there. Like I said, all the socials, All This Math, and allthismath.com is our website as well.
Thank you for the value. Let's also give a round of applause for the engaging audience today. You guys were amazing. Thank you guys for coming through. Feel free to stay and enjoy the bookstore. It's a beautiful day outside. So if you have any more questions for the bookstore or for the author, we are here for you. And have a great day. Thank you.